So then they're called in to be blessed by the land, or they're going to have a land. They're going to be given a land, and that also is not something that's arbitrary from God. So what do you guys make of what is it about our relationship with God that then leads to having a land?
Well, I think the garden was the land where God dwelt with his, the first, right? And there's a place where God resides that ultimately we want to be at. And this is a version of that, since the original one is not accessible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things I think about, but I'm sure there's more to it than that.
There's also a place to work and keep, to cultivate, to transform, and kind of in the image of God, taking the chaos and turning it into order, and the land is what you do that with.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's also something that's really basic that we often miss, and that's where do you guys keep yours?
My land?
No, your tattoo. Well, I know, but I don't know.
You don't know where my tattoo is?
Right.
There's a good reason for that.
Right. Because how else do we know? I mean, you own a house, and you own a house, and how else do we know what house we own if we don't have our address tattooed on us somewhere, right? If you think it's so the idea of land ownership is a very strange thing, and in fact, if you go to if we go down to the Amazon rainforest and we find some tribe that's been living cut off from humanity forever, they have no knowledge of what this is, right?
Okay.
I was reading about a tribe and they don't know numbers. They don't have words for tomorrow. Land ownership, that's a concept that's completely foreign to them. And there was a guy that went down to this tribe as a missionary, and he never converted anybody. In fact, they converted him, and now he's an atheist.
Wow.
And he speaks of this tribe as if it's just the best thing ever. It's kind of was it not Hobbes? Who was the one that was really the philosopher that was really into man in a state of nature, being innocent and fantastic, and everything was great. I think it was Rousseau. He has this very Rousseauian view of them as aren't they fantastic? This is the way everyone should live. All the wisdom that's wrapped up in this. The problem is that this author, he flies in and he hangs out and lives with them a little bit, and then he goes on book tours, and then he goes on, and the thing is he doesn't. If you want to praise us and say it's great, then go there and live exactly the way that they live. When you get sick, don't go to a hospital.
Right.
Don't
talk to us about it,
Right.
because you should be excluding yourself.
Right,
from
exactly. You should be down there living in the
Yeah.
jungle, and with this is your entire life, your entire existence, your entire world. The thing is that he praises. Does he want to be enumerate? Does he want to be illiterate? Does he want? No, of course he doesn't want. Look at the great horizons that have opened up to him. He lives a completely different life. Even when he's there living in one of their huts, he's not living like they are living. Yeah. And that's one of the things that's fascinating to me about the Western modern man's mindset is he picks up a little bit. He'll put his Himalayan prayer flags out in front of his house, and he'll have his picture of Buddha and some of his Hindu gods up on his house and everything, and he has no idea what his life is not founded on any of those things. He's a tourist who's collected some postcards. He has no idea what it's really like to live the kind of life that he's promoting. There's a very strange abstract. There's nothing physical that should dictate to us, or that should tell us, or that should connect you guys to your houses, right? Because you could say, well, it's got my stuff in it. Okay, well, what connects you to your stuff? Why is that your stuff, right? Do you guys remember the movie The Gods Might Be Crazy? Or The Gods Must Be Crazy?
Must be crazy.
Yeah, The Gods Must Be Crazy. The Coke bottle,
Right.
flies out of the airplane. The guy's flying over, drinks the Coke, throws it out, and this tribe finds it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
It's been a long time.
It basically disrupted everything in their culture because ownership became a
right,
capacity.
because all of a sudden there's something that has a great use that isn't just lying around everywhere, and now everybody wants to use it. And the kind of the final straw was two women were arguing over who was going to use the Coke bottle, and one smacked the other one on the head, and then they decided they needed to carry
evil.
it to the end of the
Get it
world
out.
and throw it off. Yeah.
Spoiler alert. That's the movie.
Yeah, but I think that you're they don't have there's no conception for them of property, and so because of that, why develop something? Why take responsibility for something? Why there's a concept called the tragedy of the commons. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It's an economic idea, which is that if you have a common space, nobody feels like they're responsible for it, and so it's going to be, you can have a bunch of houses, and if there's a common space in between them, it'll be the worst kept of all, because everybody takes care of what's theirs.
So it's like the microwave oven in the break room at work, where
Right.
it's just nasty. Yeah.
That's a perfect example. Yeah, the microwave. Nobody at their home would allow their microwave to get the way that.
Not let others see it anyway.
Right. But the idea is that there's the idea of a property being yours, and so it's under your care and your responsibility, but then also the benefits also accrue to you. There's a relationship there where you glorify the land, and the land glorifies you.
You bless it; it blesses you. Yeah.
We take this
ownership.
This idea as completely, well, it's intuitive, but it's not intuitive. When you go to the primitive places in the world, they have no concept of this. It's not intuitive at all. And really, why is it that you can go to all these places in the world where these tribes have been isolated? They have no concept of private property or anything like that. And they live the way they've lived for thousands and thousands of years. Our lives have gotten better. Their lives have stayed the same. Now, some people, the Rousseauians, will say, "Oh, it's great. They're living the kind of life we should." Our lives have only gotten more chaotic and disconnected as a result of this. But you don't see any of them actually volunteering to go there and live. And some might go there as tourists and stay a few nights or even a month or two or a year. But they're not moving there and giving up they're not giving up their life. They're not trading. And the fact that they're not trading is kind of important for the discussion.
Yeah.
So this idea of land is something that ends up being the foundation for the blessings that we receive. Because in any of these really kind of ancient, we'll call them tribes, do any of them have big agricultural operations?
Limited.
No, they're almost always hunters and gatherers, right? Because becoming a farmer means investing yourself in a land, and if I'm going to go and do all the work of planting, collecting all the seeds and planting all these things right here so I can have access to it, if all my neighbors are going to just come and pick the fruit, why would I do that?
Right.
And so you're never more efficient than you were. Tomorrow is going to be exactly the same as yesterday. You're never more efficient, and the amount of time it takes you to secure your food is never going to change, and it's going to require everybody in the tribe to participate in that. So you're never going to have a hospital. You're never going to have a doctor, because you're never going to have a blacksmith. You're never going to, you know what I'm saying? There's never going to be any specialization, any differentiation. There's never going to be any of that, because everybody's time is going to be occupied with raising food. Everything, all of the blessings of the life that we live come from this idea. And then really culture and worship come from that. I mean, imagine 800 years to build a cathedral in Europe. You can't do that if everybody's spending all their time finding food. So this concept is something that comes from God, because God takes ownership of the earth. He has responsibility, bears responsibility. He glorifies it, and then it glorifies him. And then finally, the last one is being a blessing to the world. So that seems pretty straightforward. What do you guys make of that?
We talked about, God is honest and wants to pass that blessing of being honest to us. And the same thing here. I mean, God is a blessing, and he wants us to engage in being like him in a sense. And I think it's one of those things. If you're going to live like God, you can't help but be a blessing to those around you.
Ownership, if God owns his people and he blesses them with, like him having ownership, we care about the things that he cares for his things.
Yeah.
He allows us to care for our things. The idea is that will keep growing and growing, and ultimately the whole world will be returned to him,
Right.
At least given the chance to fully be owned by him.
Yeah, I think
And glorified.
that idea of ownership is funny, because I would say that when you say that in our current, culture, there's a negative connotation that comes from the word ownership, and it's because we have a very, I would say, immature view of what ownership is. When you were 16, were you excited about owning a car?
Sure.
Yeah.
And you thought to yourself, now I'll have a car to take care of, right? Now I'll have a car
the monthly payment, the cleaning,
to
the
Now
insurance.
pay
Now I
for.
can work 33 hours a month to pay for this thing.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. Exactly. That's exactly what you thought. No, you thought of nothing but there's freedom. There's a benefit. There's glory to be had, and then, the worst of us then don't put any oil in their car and then have the engine blow up on the freeway, right?
Oil? What's oil?
No.
Well, the ownership, you talk about your own kids and wanting them to be a certain thing. You own them, so to speak. You want them to be glorious. You teach them to be glorious. You punish them when they are failing at that. Ultimately, you want them to choose to be glorious so that they be what you want them to be, but ultimately what God wants them to be, because you're merely a conduit of their being blessed, and he is the one who truly owns them.
Yeah, and I think that the proper view of ownership is that, and all of us work through this when we're teenagers, right? You did that by blowing up your engine on the freeway.
That's right.
I ended up kind of going super far the other way, but not in a healthy way. I remember I bought a brand new truck, and I didn't want anybody to scratch it or touch it or anything. And the first thing I did, first day I drove it to school, I pulled up in the parking lot, and I hear this whap, and I look over, and this girl in the most beat up Honda Civic you've ever seen, just with the one that's spray painted rattle can. She throws open her door and just dings mine
Right on
really hard.
day one.
Doesn't even realize, and I'm just seething inside. But I think that what you work through eventually is the idea that ownership really means there's a covenant relationship there, and really what God's covenant does is it creates a whole bunch of microcosms of that relationship, right? His covenant relationship with us creates a kind of a cascade of microcosms in our life where our relationships look the same. Yeah. And there's ownership creates a two-way street where if you have a dog, that dog is your dog, but you are his owner, right? There's each one of you can say, he is mine. Right, and that's really what ownership does, and that's the nature of that relationship, of recognizing that it goes both directions, is what ends up creating a blessing in the world. It's what ends up being the foundation for everything good that comes from the world, is recognizing that two-way street. You can be in a situation where all you do is recognize obligations, in which case you're probably going to be a very unhappy person. You can be in a position where all you do is recognize privileges, in which case you're going to be surrounded by unhappy people that are unhappy with you. But the idea, obviously, is that this relationship that God has with Abraham is going to be the foundation for everything that Abraham then encounters. And I think that's what you see through the story of Abraham. And I think that's what we'll all see through the story of Abraham. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys next time.